Hi, Jake. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you very much for coming on with me today.
Evening, mate. How we doing?
How are we,
Yeah,
Jake? How are you?
not too bad. Not too bad. Just fresh back from a trip to a customer down in Devizes. So straight in through the door, laptop open. Pleasure of speaking to you.
Okay, yeah, well, just a little bit. I saw your article in on the TWI Welding and Joining Matters the other day. Obviously, reached out to you on LinkedIn. So thank you very much for replying.
No problem.
Just a quick question. Where did you grow up and how did you get into welding?
So I'm from Daventry in Northamptonshire, and getting into welding for me was a very unusual route. We're all young once. We all get into things that we shouldn't get involved with. For me, at 16, I got involved with the wrong crowd, ended up with drinking and drug problems, which eventually rendered me homeless. So I was homeless for about 3 or 4 months, seeing that there was apprenticeships, had no idea. I knew I was going to work with my hands, always been really, really practical, very kinetic learner. And that was only reinforced with the advantages of the school, primary school and secondary school. They were very much vocational, they're like hands-on stuff. So for all my school life, always knew I was going to work with my hands. Got involved with the wrong crowd, stuff happens, ended up homeless, applied for what was Mitsui back in the day. They were offering roles for mechanical fitters. And in my mind, mechanical fitting, machining, lathing, turning, all that sort of stuff that I was really interested in. Applied for the job, got the contract through, and that was my opportunity. The minute I'd done the interview and I'd been given that contract to start an apprenticeship, that was my ticket back home, back to start a life again, and really have a second chance of making something of myself. It's quite funny. I turn up on the first day of the apprenticeship. Now, the contract that I had come through was for a mechanical fitter. So I'm thinking, great, got the job that I want, or the apprenticeship that I want. It gets to lunchtime on day one, and all they're talking about is welders and pipe fitters. And me being me, I quietly go up to the front, Dave Whitehouse, I put him to one side and say, I'm really sorry, but I think I've turned up on the wrong day. What's your name? Goes down the list, Jake Rambaldini. No, you're on the right day. We've got you down as a welder. And I still remember to this day feeling physically sick because I did not want to be a welder. Hated it. When I did the assessment, I was like, no. So at Babbies, you sort of put first, second, third, fourth choice. Welding was my third choice.
Okay.
Before, it came after mechanical fitting and pipe fitting, but I had nothing. I lost a lot of friends through what happened. Lost a lot of family, relationships with family, and I didn't have a choice. So I took the opportunity. A week after having a screen on my head, that was it. I was hooked.
Did
Hooked.
you
And it
kind of
was,
feel like you took to it quite well, welding straight away, or?
yeah, I've always been, like you say, good with my hands, and I've always taken stuff apart, put it back together again. Always been creative as well. So I did a lot of wood turning and metal work when I was younger, carpentry, joinery, stuff like that. And welding is a hand-eye coordination skill. So when I started doing it, I found myself enjoying it, and I just happened to be not too bad. Wasn't the best in the group, and still to this day, I'm not the best welder out there. I'm not the prettiest welder, not by a million miles. But the fascination with the process is where my real passion for welding started. I started reading the older books, the older journals, really learning about what welding was, and then to be taken out onto a power station and seeing welding being applied, it was like mind blown engineering ejaculation from my side. I was like, look at these turbines, look at these boilers, and engineering stuff like that. Always been massively passionate about it, and that was it really. The rest was history. That's it. It was my golden ticket to getting away from a life that had swallowed me up, and I had no direction. I still remember sitting there, park benches, the usual life of a homeless
Yeah.
person, and going, What am I going to do? Where am I going to go? Got nothing. I had nothing. So blagged all the interview paperwork, as you do.
Yeah.
You know, pay a friend to take you to the interview, and it all worked out. It all worked out. So
No, that's an incredible story, Jay. So when you said about obviously leaving school, do you think schools do enough currently to promote apprenticeships or to promote the industry? Because it's not something I ever remember being pushed towards me.
no, I think a lot of this is isolated to certain areas. You know, I think back to the apprenticeship, and there was lads on my apprenticeship that knew they wanted to be welders, but their dads were welders, their uncle were welders,
Yeah.
and in the industries, on the power stations and oil refineries. So I see that it's like fairly localized. You know, you go to somewhere like Pembroke College, really good facilities, fantastic trainers, Joe Bradshaw, ex Babcock. They have a very close connection with local employers with regards to welding. So their standard and the level of welders that they produce is very high. And we find the same thing at like Lakes College, again, where you've got that relationship with Sellafield and all of those other companies that support such a site like Sellafield. There's the development and the passion for welding and that relationship. You go to a college in the middle of nowhere where welding isn't a thing, and there's general basic fabrication. It's not pushed. So schools definitely, even more so now that health and safety regulations are driving down access to vocational skills. I remember being in primary school using a tabletop scroll saw, cutting stuff out of wood at the age of sort of 6 or 7.
Yeah.
That was installed in me then. And then to go to secondary school, we had an engineering department, you know, access to lathes, milling machine, wood turning, drilling, sanders. We would make stuff. And I always knew that academically was not going to be I wasn't going to be sat in front of a computer and typing away. It was these things that were going to make me money. I just never knew what it was that I wanted to do. But to be honest with you, if it was a carpentry apprenticeship, joinery, any form of metalwork, anything that involves hand-eye, hand skills, I probably would have been satisfied, more than satisfied. It just happens that welding came along at the right time for me.
So tell me a little bit more about the apprenticeship.
So when I applied for the apprenticeship when it was Mitsui, I
Yeah.
went to Doosan Babcocks.
Okay.
So I didn't put the two Babcock names together. And I mean, you in the welding world now, if you don't know of Babcocks, you've been living in a hole. I
Yeah.
didn't know anything about Babcocks, and everyone's like, "Oh, you've got an apprenticeship at Babcocks," and I'm thinking,
Yeah.
they're still renowned as one of the best training schools in Europe. I mean, the quality of welders that they turn out is second to none, and they've been an industry leader in that level of investment for a long time. You know, there's all the stops are pulled out, and we were the first batch of apprentices to go into their new school. There's a brand new facility, 60 welding bays, a dedicated training school to apprenticeships, upskilling, testing welders, and yeah, it's only after I did my apprenticeship did I realize how lucky I was to get an apprenticeship with a company like that. Only because I've seen other examples of apprenticeships, and unfortunately, then they're not as good as what they need to be. On site today, I've been doing some welder training today in a company that within the aerospace industry, 4th-year apprentice, welding apprentice. We did a theory session this morning, 3 hours. Got to the end of it, he turned around and said, "I've learned more about welding in 3 hours than what I have 4 years."
It's incredible. Sometimes kind of apprentices are just used to do the odd jobs around the workshop or on site, you know, cleaning up and whatnot. It's not fair, is it?
It's an investment in the future.
Of
You know,
course, yeah.
average age of the welder now, it wouldn't surprise me if it's well over the 50 mark. Where are we going to get these people to build the new nuclear stations, to help build the submarines and all of this, everything, the whole infrastructure that, you know, Britain is very good at making. It was only very good at making stuff because it had the people and the skills to make these things. We're slowly losing that. We're slowly losing that exposure to welding. You say welding to anyone that doesn't know what welding is, and they instantly think of someone that fixes cars.
Yeah, that's obviously is so much more than that as well, isn't it?
So much more. And it's not even that we just need welders, you know, the manual side of it. We need those individuals. Some people will be welders and will be welders for the rest of their life. We need people that come in, do a very well structured, very well delivered apprenticeship scheme, do the practical welding side of things, and then, you know, like other people that you spoke to, then grow into higher tier roles like inspection, like responsible welding coordination, NDT testers. We need those kind of people, and we need that to feed in from the welding side of things.
100%, because you have the base from an apprenticeship, whether that be welding, pipe fitting, and obviously you can build on that, as you said, whether you want to go into inspection or whether you want to go into other, you know, just having that base and that knowledge from the years in college and obviously the years spent on site, you know, it's invaluable, really, isn't it? You know, you can
Yeah,
go and do
definitely.
a C-script 3.1, but it doesn't really make you an inspector. Kind of your knowledge helps with that, what you build
100%.
up.
100%. It's, you know, it's building blocks to developing not just welders, but skilled individuals to support projects like the small modular reactor program at Rolls-Royce. We need people feeding that. We need welders, we need inspectors, we need welding engineers. Just, you know, it's not happening quick enough. We're not making enough skilled, highly skilled welders. We're very, very good at churning out low-level MIG welders. Go and do a level 3 MIG welding course at college. They're not MIG welding, so they leave doing a 3-year MIG welding qualification, and they're not MIG welding, they're MAG welding for a start.
Yeah.
The fundamentals begin at the educational stage, whether that's secondary school, whether that's college, that's where it needs to start. And again, unfortunately, there's a lot of colleges out there that are employing people that have reached their end of their working career. And they see college as an opportunity to not only educate and teach, but what they're teaching is 50 years old, 40, 50, 60 years old, not what we need now. You know, TIG aluminium. Oh, no, we don't do that. We just MIG weld. Well, you're not MIG welding, you're MAG welding. Do you do any stainless? Oh, no, we don't touch stainless. Well, where do these 15, 16, 20 students that have done their level 3 MIG welding course, where do they ultimately end up? And I can tell you, most of them don't end up in the welding industry because they've got it into their head that all they're going to be doing is pulling a trigger and pointing a torch.
Yeah. Do you think that the issue is as well, like obviously welding, you can earn lots of good money, but to drop in then into a teaching role in a college, I suppose it would be quite a drop in income.
Massive.
Like you're not going to be earning a lot sort of compared to what you would if you're out there working, you know, long hours or weekends.
You know yourself, a good welder on site, you know, whether it be Hinkley, nuclear, oil, gas, oil refineries, Rolls-Royce, GE, welders can make 60, 70, 80 grand a year. You know, there's some phenomenal money that's being paid because there's such a huge, what I call high integrity skill shortage. Loads of people at the bottom end. And I don't mean that disrespectfully at all. You know, steel fabricators, very skilled. But what we need is pipe welders, positional, tight access. They're, you know, those, even if it's not doing that type of work, people with that experience to go back into these businesses and share their experience and knowledge with businesses, with colleges, with the education, say, look, this is what we need. You know, it's just a very big disconnect at the minute between what industry requires and what our educational system is able to deliver. I wouldn't
Not
work in a
exactly.
college. I,
No. You probably couldn't afford to work in a college.
no,
Me
why?
personally, know where I am
What
now.
go down Hinkley or go down to Hitachi trains and do what 1,800 quid a week after tax?
Yeah.
Name another skill where you do a 3 4 year apprenticeship and can make comfortably 50 60,000 pounds a year.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously the wage is very good, isn't it? And that's kind of only going to keep getting better as demand keeps getting higher. So unless we are training people to come through, as you said, positional
Yeah,
pipe work, then it's going to be difficult to fill that void, isn't it?
yeah. But unfortunately, welding is a skill that requires a lot of funding. It requires a lot of training, a lot of practice. It's expensive. Rods are expensive, materials are expensive, and that's where we kind of lean on these bigger companies like Babcock's and like what Alstom apprenticeship was very good, like Rolls Royce to produce these people in industry, but it shouldn't be on them. There should be support that colleges can offer to these companies. What we're seeing is they're turning around and going, we can't get that support, so we'll send them to college to tick that box, but everything they're going to learn is going to be taught by us in-house.
So do you
Not,
think that should be government funded then? Is that something that we should be looking at?
we talk about government funding. As a business, when they build a training school and they upskill, whose money are they spending? And they get a lot of grants, they get a lot of tax levies. If that money was better spent going into colleges, less reliance would be on the business. But it's like full circle. We come back to the point that, okay, great, let's plow money into colleges, but are you going to get the educators in there? Do I want to go to a college and teach 15 people that probably 13 of them have just gone for welding because they didn't know what else to do? And that's unfortunately where we're at. There are a few colleges where you do get candidates, a classroom turnout of people that are committed and dedicated and see the long game. They see the advantage of learning these skills. A lot of people see it very low down in the terms of skilled labor, and it's kind of like what you go to apprenticeship. Oh, if you can't read or write, become a mechanic. We're kind of now, become a welder.
Yeah, it's not ideal, is it? But kind
No,
of at the same time, I fell into welding, so I tried to find an apprenticeship, an electrician I wanted to be for a while. Applied through the ECITB, and they were like, "We don't have anything, but we have welding apprenticeships." So it kind of went down, no idea what welding was, and then obviously once I started welding, kind of enjoyed it, and then was lucky enough
fascinating.
to find an apprenticeship off that. But sometimes you do fall into something you really enjoy, but unless we're promoting the industry and getting people who want to join the industry for the right reasons, then
Yeah.
as you said, it's difficult to fill the
And
void.
it's that talk. We've got to, you've got to dangle a carrot. You've got to give incentive. Everybody's driven differently, and different incentives drive people in different ways. My incentive for welding was it was an opportunity to get me out of the situation I was in and possibly into a more stable lifestyle.
Yeah.
For other people, they've got their own stories and their own reasons for wanting to do it. I want to go out and make a load of money. If that's their reason, fine,
Yeah.
facilitate that. Give them that opportunity to go out there and do it. But it's not there for them to see. It's not an option, really. It's all the welding's down in the corner. Yeah, you don't want that. It's hot, dirty, and smelly. They don't go, actually, yeah, it's hard work. Yeah, you put in shifts, but you might walk away with 2 grand a week after tax every week.
Yeah. Yeah, if you want it, it's there, isn't it? You might have to put the hours in, you might have to put the graft in, but if you want to make money, then you certainly can.
Yeah, definitely. But it's getting that out there.
Yeah.
You
That's
can
just
make it.
promoting the industry, isn't it? And kind of that's why I started the podcast, because a lot of people you speak to on site, especially the older generation, would say to me, the game is gone. Get out now. Why are you in this industry? Well, I'm in the industry because I enjoy the industry.
Yeah,
And obviously qualified at 22, 23, and I've earned money ever since. So it's not like I've ever had an issue.
no,
I've only ever worked on blue book sites, or never worked for 10 an hour. So if that's the position you're in, then it's certainly not gone, is it? There's so
Yeah.
much opportunity there.
But you know, the other problem that we've got is where there are individuals that have got the potential to be incredibly good welders, there is not a system in place to upskill them. You know, I go into places and you know, the guy picks up the torch and he does a weld, and I look at it and I think, you're wasted here.
Yeah.
You've got so much more potential than what you've got here. And likewise, I get asked, well, I'm doing this at the minute, but I want to go and do that. How do I get from A to B? There isn't a thing. It's not there. We used to have systems and programs in place like that for recognition. Like, let's take that individual, they're worth upskilling into the pipe work and into the power stations and stuff like that. There's not that system in place.
No, and a lot of it is just knowledge as well. Like if you know the right people or you know somebody on a job, you could potentially get on a job. But you know, if you don't know people, if you're just say a welder in a random workshop, you don't know how to get to the next step, or you don't know how you get. I can remember thinking, sort of coming out of my apprenticeship, oh, like site, what's it going to be like? How is it going to be? When you actually get there, it's nothing special, is it? You know, who's doing better quality work, you know, in the workshop.
Yeah.
But it's just that knowledge of not knowing what's next or what's to come or how
Yeah.
to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. The direction, and I think that that really needs to be looked at about a process for recognizing and upskilling. You know, misconception of the welding trade is, oh, you're a welder, that's cool. You can weld. That's welders, you know, you might be very, very good at TIG and site work, but then put them into a structural steel firm. They've never done that before. So it's learning something brand new. We need a recognition for upskilling those that are in, not, I won't call it lower skilled trades, because it's definitely not lower skilled, but your steel fabrication shops where 13, 14, 15 pound an hour kind of, you know, there's individuals working in these industries that could be very, very good, high integrity pipe welders, but there is no system or process. And I think that's got to change. It needs to change. We can't rely on just younger people coming through the school system, colleges, to fill those spaces up top. And businesses have recognized this. Martin Fletcher, when he was at Babcock's, he would always say, I'm going to train 15 welders, 10 of them are going to leave, but 10 of them are leaving and going back into the industry where when we need them, there's a pool of people. If we're not adding to the pool, who is? It's only going to cost us money as a business in the long run. We've got to do something. And you know, for a short while, Alstom jumped on that as well and said, well, we're going to put people into this pot, but that's not happened now. They used to get funding for it. They don't get that funding anymore. So people getting into the industry is becoming less and less, especially the infrastructure projects that are coming off across the UK. They're all suffering labour shortages.
Okay, so obviously when you came to the end of your time at Doosan, is that was it the last year you went into the World Skills competition?
No, well, I was a second year apprentice.
Okay, second year.
I've been welding around 24 months
Yeah.
before I went. I still had to do another year when I come back from World Skills.
Oh.
Yeah, it was one of those. Kev Jones, which anyone that's listened to this that's been to Babcock will know of Mr. Jones. Just called me up one day, said, "Oh, you're not at site tomorrow. You're going to Crawley College. What for? Welding competition." What do you mean? I'll put you in for a welding competition. You're there next week. Bloody hell, okay. Do the competition, stuff I've never done before, like aluminium TIG and stick roots on pipe, solid wire mag, and won that event. And at that point, I sort of thought, hang on a minute, I'm going to get an opportunity to learn stuff that I'm never going to learn at Babcock's. And that was really the only reason that I did the competition initially, was learning skills that I was never going to be shown at Babcock, purely because they don't do it. That's not their welding game. And as it went on, I got more and more interested into it, into the competition, looked at the bigger picture, committed the time So while the lads are all out on site earning 15, 16, 1800 quid a week, I was in the training school on £600-700 a week. And that's still quite a lot of money, but that was my commitment to the competition, because I thought I've got an opportunity. 2 years ago, I was sat on a park bench, not knowing which way my life's going. Now I'm being given an opportunity to potentially represent my country in a skill that I very, very quickly found myself extremely passionate about. So, well, the 2011 World Skills was being held in London.
Okay.
So it was paramount for the UK to ensure that they had as many competitors as possible in the international competition. That was, I can't remember when it was, actually June-ish time maybe. So I did the national cycle, which is Skill World. Skill World is still going. It's still, I'm a big sponsor of Skill World, Coda World, Air Products, NGPA. They're all now part of Skill World, and Skill World is the feeder competition to the international cycle. Okay. Now I did that. There was me and 3 other lads, one from BAE Systems in Glasgow, one from a company in Fife, and then a lad from Alstom. And we went all the way through, right up until the very last week. We went all neck and neck. It just happened that every week where we did an assessment, everybody's scores went up, but so did mine. And I just happened to just stay above everybody and was given that opportunity. That's when my properly world skills commitment started. I was training, I did training at home. So I bought myself a little machine, training at home, as well as training as much as I could at the training school in Tipton. We flew out to Australia to do their national competition. I did a full day of TIG welding, aluminium and stainless steel with an eye patch, and still won the competition.
How did you have an eye patch?
I got a metal shard in it.
Oh no.
I ended up going to hospital twice, and they just said, look, you need an eye patch, otherwise your eye's going to get affected. I wanted to finish the competition, so they allowed me to finish. And I remember the closing ceremony, the Netherlands guy coming up, and he said, you're going to be fucking difficult to beat, aren't you? You've beat me with one eye. What are you like with two? Very comical. Very comical. So,
Where was that to in Australia then? Where was it held?
A place called Wollongong.
Okay.
2 hours south of Sydney, at their college there. And what World Skills do is 3 months before the international competition, they release the drawings for the test coupons,
Okay.
and they'll select a competition to trial run the test coupons, make sure that all the competitors can assemble it okay, finish everything in the timing, the marking scheme is suitable to the project. So when we went to Australia, that was the first time we'd seen the test projects that would be completing in London.
Okay.
So yeah, it was a good insight. Learned a lot in Australia, and then I had 3 months then to hone those skills ready for international.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about the international competition then. How did that go?
It's a very unusual experience, putting into perspective that out of 120, 130 people, you've been recognized as one of the best welders in the UK, and then you are putting those skills on show against other countries. You're going against the best that country has to offer in terms of an apprentice. So it's important to say that at world skills in the welding and in a lot of other skills, there's certain criteria. You have to be in a recognized training scheme. You can't have been welding for any more than 3 years in your skill, and you've got to be 22 or younger in the year of the competition.
Okay.
So there's a lot of learning in a very, very short amount of time. It's just an opportunity for me, and it was your home turf as well. That was the best thing. Home turf. I mean, I relished in the people walking by and people taking photos and stuff like that. That stuff didn't bother me, because I knew the minute I put my screen down and was welding, they didn't have a clue what I was doing. They didn't know whether it was a good weld or a bad weld. They didn't need to know. I found that taking that on just made me more comfortable in the competition. So it was a really, really good competition. As with most of these international competitions, when it's being held on home turf, that if there's a competitor from that country, they tend to get a bit more scrutiny than all the other countries.
Makes sense.
Home turf, there's possible advantages there never was or anything like that. But yeah, so there was a few things that happened during the competition that got very political. But that's competition. That's what happens. There's rules in, and none of the rules were broken there. So it was a very, very good competition, and to walk away with a bronze medal was, phenomenal. Really getting that medal. It wasn't until the next day that I sort of look at. It was probably near 30 months where I was at the beginning of that 30 months and where I was at the end in such a short period of time, and it was just having an opportunity and making the most of it. That's what I don't think we're particularly good at. Just getting people into welding is offering them that opportunity. Look, this is the chance. This is your opportunity. This is what you could do. This is what you could go and do. You could travel the world with this skill. It doesn't get sold. Anything. It has to be sold. And once I've been to World Skills, that really carried on just the passion for teaching and training and upskilling. It just continued from there. I continued to support future competitors for Skill Weld and World Skills. We took a team over to the World Cup at the Essen, Schneisen and Weisen cutting and welding show. And I was asked to be the training manager for that. And I've always been involved with Skill Weld somehow, some way. One of the founders of the Skill Weld competition, or one of two founders, John Pearsall and a guy called Les Ness, very well known within the industry. They started the Skill Weld competition for this exact reason, to try and give the competition, the skill, the exposure that it needs to get more people involved. The World Skills ethics is exactly that. Started a couple of years after World War II, and in Spain, I think it was. And it was carpentry or joinery, and the tutor turned up, and he had a class of 5 people because a lot of lives had been lost. And he almost sort of said to himself, how are we going to rebuild a country when we've got no skilled welders or laborers or workers or whatever it is? And that was really the birth of World Skills, and the ethos of World Skills is still that today. Exposing vocational skills, the importance of hands-on skills, whatever it is, to a country's development, to a business's development, to increasing standards. So the passion for me happened at different stages. Passion for welding, and then passion for competition, exposure to the skill. It grew from there.
Yeah, so after the competition then you still had 12 months of your apprenticeship left.
About that, yeah.
So was that going back into the school then, or was you out on site?
No, it was all site stuff.
All site on
It was all site stuff, getting out on site and site stuff. And I found that quite difficult afterwards, because you go to a competition, you win a medal, which the UK, it's the only medal, the first and only medal that the UK has won in welding since the competition started.
Even to this day.
Coloured medal. And instantly, you've been on site, you know what it's like.
Yeah.
Here he comes, Mr. World Skills, #1 welder, and
superstar welder,
cocky. You think you're going to walk in there like you're the best thing since sliced bread. And I found that there were certain sites where I was completely isolated. Still remember doing a weekend at Ratcliffe, and I'd be walking through the cabins. Is this seat free? Not for you, mate. I walked through 6 cabins. I ended up sitting outside in a chair on my own.
to an apprentice as well, but look, you have that in the industry at certain times, don't you? But
Yeah, not there was a few people that, God, what was the experience like? What do you learn? Well done, it was really good. No, a lot of there were a lot of welders sort of instantly thought, oh, here we go, here he is, world's best welder, strolling
that's
in.
jealousy as well, though, that is, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, it's just a male thing, isn't it? But it went a little bit past banter, and I was like, why did I bother? Why did I bother for all of this hassle?
Yeah.
And it sort of put me off for a little bit, but quite good at sort of shutting those kind of negative people out and just focusing on what I knew I was good at, and the passion that had borne over that 24, 36 month period. I did six or 7 years with Babcock's.
Okay.
What did it for me? I was on night shift at Hinckley. I was 6 weeks in, and I didn't even put my overalls on, because I was then the welder that would do the work that either other welders didn't want to do, or other welders had fucked up. And no, you just sit there, Jake. And the guy I can't remember who it was now, kept coming in and say, no, you just wait, and we'll find you some work. 6 weeks. And I was like, fuck this, I'm done. It was easy money, but there comes a point. I like to go to work. I like to earn my money. I like to have a value. When you're sitting in a cabin and you're sleeping for 10 hours out of the 12 away from home, what's the point? Money's out the window. So I just walked in and went, I won't be here next week, that's it. And I got a local job, setting up a fabrication company, tube benders. And again, the challenge went from that. And it was at that point that John Pearsall, he'd been hassling me calling me for probably 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Come and do a week with me, Jay. Come see what I do. And I was quite young. I was only probably 24 at the time, earning good money, always put it off. So he left doing what I was doing at Babcock's, got a very steady 30, 35 grand a year job on my doorstep, hated it. Going in at 8, finishing at 4, no.
Yeah.
It just didn't do it for me.
Regimental, isn't it?
He just called me up out the blue and said, do you fancy coming a week? Coming and doing a week. I think I was 26. Turned around and went, I've got fuck all. I'm a welder. If this goes tits up, I can go and get a job. It's not a problem. So I took that opportunity. We did a week with him, shit myself completely, because you walk into these companies and you're that person that's training them, teaching them. So I remember like delivering some training classes and stood in front of a room of 6, 7 guys, speechless. I couldn't get a word out. And then they start laughing at you. So steep learning curve, but a challenge. And yeah, 8 weeks later, I went full-time self-employed with John Pearsall. And that was it, really. That was 5, 6 years ago now. It must have been. I remember John walking in about 14, 16 months into it. Just walked in, sat down. He said, right then, I'm gonna be retiring. It's like, right, okay. Where's that leave me? Well, the business, that's now yours.
Wow.
Yeah. John involved a few people in his business, hoping that they would deliver the same service that John delivered. And anyone that's met John Pearsall, he's one of a kind. Very intelligent, very quick, very quirky. And he'd just get away with murder with some of the stuff that he'd say to people, because he's a little white-haired shit. Fundamentally. Yeah. That's how everybody knows him. Okay. Very, very intelligent and skilled with welding. He was gonna just shut the business because he didn't want somebody going in there that wasn't going to be able to deliver the same service that he was to those customers. And I was kind of the last card, I guess. I was the last chance. We had support from CodaWeld. So Clive and Dave had seen that there was an opportunity for CodaWeld to be able to support someone like myself going into the world of weld testing and training and stuff. So yeah, we took the business over from John and restructured it, and we're here today. Do very well for ourselves. Set up in Daventry. It's been really good. We have our ups and downs. But the limitation of my business is people don't call up Rambaldini Welding Services, they call up for Jake Rambaldini, which means everything is on your shoulders. They're paying, they want you. They don't want somebody else. So growing the business has always been a difficult step. How do we grow a business when your customers and your clients want you? And nearly all of my work is word of mouth. The phone calls that I get are, oh, we spoke to so-and-so, they've had you in, they said you're the man for the job, we want you, when can you come in? Don't really get much through the website or anything like that. It's all word of mouth, which for me, it's the best kind of marketing.
Spend on marketing if people are talking about you.
I mean, my website's junk. I'll admit that it's rubbish. But how do you put across into a website and in words what you're able to do as an individual and as a business? You know, we are unique. I don't have any real competitors out in industry because I know there's the businesses that are out there that are delivering training can't do what I do. And I know that sounds really big-headed, and there'll be people listening to that thinking cocky little shit, but they're not out there. I get told that, oh, we've had 3 welder training companies in. Why didn't we pick up the phone to you first? You know, we've wasted our money. And that for me is good, but it's also frustrating because it sort of, you know, it leads back to that knowledge and that information that's out in industry and in colleges and educational centres, but what I see is the substandard level of teaching.
Have you kind of thought about bringing somebody on yourself to train them up to kind of do what you do? Is that something you've tried or?
No, John turned around to me and he said, the biggest problem you'll find is finding someone like you. He says, I'm lucky. I'm very lucky that I've come across and I found someone like you that can deliver above and beyond what I can deliver to my customers. He says, you won't find someone. He says, your biggest problem will be finding somebody else like you. And that has been the problem. Yes, we've expanded into selling equipment and consumables, you know, industrial gases and stuff like that. But again, that side of the business needs somebody else to run and manage it. You know, that's starting to take off. So we have to be very careful with, right, let's grow the business, because trying to get the people in and around this area, especially in Daventry, there's not the skilled labour that I can bring in and then train up. There's not, we've got Cummins around the corner and a couple of other fabricators, but they do very basic type of welding. So the minute you throw flux core positional plates at them, stuffed, or thin wall stainless, stuffed, duplex, I ain't got a clue. And so, and the chances are you train them and then they turn around and go, oh, I don't really want to do this anymore. And that to me as a small business is very dangerous.
Of course, it's not so bad, as you said, to do some if they put 15 through and keep 5. Obviously, for a small business, if you put all the time and effort into one person, and then they decide a year down the line it's not for them, not sustainable, is it?
No, it impacts the business, you know, massively. So with, you know, my partner, she runs my office and she is great. She does all my bookings. We've recently had a child, 9-month-old. We are both self-employed. We both run the business. If she's not here, the business stops. So she had 2 weeks off between giving birth and coming back to work. She had 2 weeks off. She was working the morning that she gave birth. But
it's incredible.
That's the level of commitment that we've got to our business because we're both very passionate about it. My partner, I met her through CodaWeld. So she'd been at CodaWeld for 16 years. It was a bit of a Gavin and Stacey telephone conversations. And I was down at CodaWeld doing some training and she was there. We got talking. It gets to 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, maybe I should go home. And yeah, we went on a date the week after. And that was it. So I'd be a little bit lost without her. But again, it's, you know, she's very good at what she does. Very good. And I wouldn't be, and the business wouldn't be where it is without her now. So yeah, that move into being self-employed, I would have never have met her. Sounds silly.
Takes a
So
lot of sacrifice being self-employed. Obviously, it's easier to just be employed by someone, take your wage every week.
100%.
You're guaranteed you pay every Thursday, every Friday. But to be self-employed, it's a lot of pressure as well, isn't it?
It's non-stop. It is, and the type of industry that we're in, well, I'm in, and a lot of the other companies that are going out testing, qualifying welders, procedures, those companies are relying on you being on there on that day. Their certification runs out, they're stuffed. They won't make stuff. So it's not a case of just chopping and changing. Oh, I won't turn up to work today, or no, we'll just move those. They rely on you turning up on the day that you've booked. They've organised it. They've got all the material. The last thing you want to do is let that customer down.
No, of course.
And so that whole thing of, oh, you're self-employed, you're your own boss. There's probably certain jobs that is the case. For us, it's our business. We have to commit to the business because the business needs both of us. It needs me out on site, training, doing the calls, doing all of that stuff, but it also needs Kerry making sure that we're keeping the customers happy on an email perspective and making sure we're getting them booked in time. I look at my diary now. I'm taking bookings for end of May.
Yeah, obviously it's far in advance. So, for anybody who doesn't know what you do, what exactly do you do at your company?
Anything and everything to do with welding.
Okay.
Okay, so the bulk of it is welder qualification and certification procedures for businesses that sit between a high tier PED, execution class 3, class 4 stuff, and the guys that are making gates. That's predominantly where I spend a lot of my time, is with those customers. I don't. There'll be people listening that will go, "Oh my God, I haven't got UCAS accreditation." It's something that we're looking at doing. The likes of Lloyd's and WeldQual and CodaWeld and Zurich, all of those, they've got all the accreditation bells and whistles. At some point, my business will move towards that, but currently, we don't need to. Okay, I know at any time where I need UCAS or RTPO accreditation, I involve a laboratory. But I orchestrate it, and the customer knows that they're going to pay a little bit more for that, but they know then if there's a problem, it's not their fault, it's my fault. And touch wood, we don't generally have those issues. We spend the time making sure the paperwork is all correct, so when they submit it off, or when we're looking at the drawings and procedures, they're getting exactly what they need, and they're not overdoing it or underdoing it, and it ticks all the boxes. So spend a lot of my time doing the qualifications, procedures, training, process development. So company yesterday that make tube, Inconel tube, titanium tube, roll, seam weld it, and they'd have a couple of welding companies come in, and I was the third one to go in. We were doing theory training on TIG welding, and then a bit of an assessment downstairs. And 3 other welding experts had been in and not picked up on the fact that they were running 5 TIG welding machines off 1 regulator.
Okay.
And they couldn't figure out, and it's a business that's been running for years and years, they couldn't figure out why they were getting inconsistencies, and they'd run a batch and it would be poor welding. And you start talking to them, they said, "Oh, well, we did notice that when all the welders are running, we don't really have any problems. But when one person stops, everybody else have issues." Well, it's because you're running 1 regulator, trying to run 3 or 4, 5, 6 machines. Your gas flow, your gas pressures are jumping up and down all over the place. I mean, at one point, we put a torch end flow meter onto one of the TIG torches when no one was welding. And it was like 35 litres a minute of gas coming out the end of the torch. The guy was like, "Well, that would make sense. Well, I'm getting porosity and I'm blowing holes in it." And I'm thinking, So I get involved with a lot of stuff, supporting companies, improving processes, one-man bands that just want some training or are looking to gain their own qualifications, they're self-employed, anything and everything to do with welding, as bluntly put as that.
And as you said, most of that is just through word of mouth then, so people will phone you or sort of message you on LinkedIn. Is that
Yeah,
sort of...
LinkedIn, things like Instagram, and just general out of the blue telephone calls. Oh, we spoke to so and so. We've been asked to do a weld procedure. We spoke to them. They said, give you a call and you're going to sort it out. So yeah, it works really good, but it's difficult to meet everybody's needs. Definitely, it's not an 8 till 4 job. I spend a lot of time here getting certification raised and sent out, preparing for the next job. Expanding the business. I've got into welding, doing fabrication work as well. So using a couple of guys that I know from industry, getting them on board as self-employed guys, because they are out there self-employed, and getting them doing some welding and fabrication work for me. Again, just trying to keep that another source of income going into the bank account.
No, of course, just to keep building what you have, really. That's all we can do is keep moving forward, isn't it?
And expand.
So what is next for you then?
It's difficult, Kristen. I ask myself this.
Yeah, I think we all ask ourselves that, yeah.
Where are we going? What are we going to end up? It's probably a bad thing, but I'm very, very emotionally attached to where I am in my life with the business.
Okay.
Very lucky. John Pearsall's business was built on the values of him as an individual. John's speak to John. He's the man you want to speak to. I've kind of fitted into his shoes and taken a similar role, but it's Rambaldini. That's the guy that you want on your site. How do you grow that? How do you see the future? Now, for me, because I'm passionate about what we do as a business, getting up, going to work isn't a chore. It's something that I enjoy the process. I love seeing the process from start to finish. And I think I'd really struggle to do anything else that gives me that level of satisfaction, because we go out, every single penny that goes into that bank account is off the back of our reputation as a business and what we're able to deliver. Not a huge amount. I make half as much money now as what I did as a welder, and I probably get less time and less freedom, but job satisfaction and seeing that process, seeing people, you teach them something and the little light bulb goes off, and you see them grow and develop. It's brilliant. I remember, a lad that spoke to on Instagram a few times. He worked for a company called KGD or something down in Hereford. Mate,
was his name Adam or Mark?
That's the guy.
I was an inspector at my last company, and he was there as a welder.
Was that for KGD?
No, but he had just left KGD, just left his apprenticeship. I think he's now up at TEI, isn't he? When I spoke to him last.
But that, another interesting one. He very, very good TIG welder, not much exposure to stick, but wanted to get out on site and wanted to go and do this. And he sort of said, how much is it going to be for me to come to you and do a day's training? I don't want to learn it from anybody else. Spoke to people that told me, you're the person that I need to go. And I know you're going to cost me a lot of money, which is fine. We're open about that. So he come and did a day with me. We taught him the basics around stick welding with 7018s and a 6G on a pipe. He went away, he practiced. Then he, like you say, he's at TEI now. They're putting him through all the training because they've seen the same potential as what I seen in him, and said, look, you'll be fine. And from that, he's grown. He's always sending me pictures of stuff and look, I'm doing this. And it's great to see that. It's great to see it as a business as well. When you look at a business, they're not, right, we're going to get into doing this. What do we need to do? Getting in there, supplying them the right equipment, consumables, procedures, quals, WPSs, seeing that process, and then seeing a product go out the door that you've had an input in. That for me is incredibly rewarding.
I can imagine how rewarding it must feel. I remember when I came out of my apprenticeship, I could only TIG weld. I couldn't stick weld at all. And I actually went up to do some 4 or 5 days similar to what Adam did, and I paid. I can't remember how much it was now, but I took a week off work, went up, did 5 days in the bay learning the stick, and then
Yeah,
I kind of left there being able to, well, at least had a knowledge or a brief knowledge of how to stick well pipe. And then I went off, found a company where I was using it regularly, and then, within a few months I was able to pass the tests.
yeah,
But that was only because I put money into myself and into my future,
yeah.
because that was
That
always
self
what I
investment.
wanted to do. Yeah, it's not a waste of money if you're able to stick well after a few months. Then is it?
No, and again, we go back to what we're speaking about that level of upskilling. What I find is it's the individuals that are having to front that bill to upskill themselves.
Yeah,
And it's always disappointing for me when I know they've gone to a place that has said, yes, we'll deliver this training, they're 1,500 quid in, and they leave there knowing a little bit more, but then sort of go, okay, well, yeah, you're going to cost me 500 quid for the day. But if you're charging 500 quid or whatever it is, you're going to be worth it.
yeah.
They come to me and they do a day, and you get to lunchtime, and they turn around and go, I just wasted a week. I've learned more in 3, 4, 5 hours in half a day with you than what I did doing 8 hours a day of welding in another training centre. That for me is frustrating. It's good for me, but it's frustrating because it means that individual's worked hard, they've spent their money, but they've not got back from what they've not got from the money that they've spent what they were expecting. So
Yeah.
that's 1,500 quid or 2 grand or whatever it is that's essentially down the drain. Then they've got to save all that money up again. So it shouldn't be down for these individuals. There should be some sort of support scheme where you do an assessment. If the assessor believes you've got some good potential, you then start your journey on upskilling. So yeah.
No, well, fingers crossed. Hopefully, it's something. Well, the industry's going to have to do things to bring people in and to upskill the workers we already have, or we're not going to be able to find enough people to fill the
No.
vacancies.
Rolls-Royce have recognised this for their nuclear side of things, the small modular reactors. They've recognised they aren't going to be able to employ the people from the labour market to help them deliver what they're going to deliver as a business. So I think it's all green lighted. It's going ahead. It's going to be like a 50 bay welder training school or something, because they have recognised we're stuffed. We need welders. We can't get them. The ones that are coming aren't up to the standard that we need them. They're not coming out of college with their skills, so we're going to have to invest. So they bought a new building that they're going to convert into a dedicated welder training school. Some of those people will leave Rolls-Royce and go into other industries, but they're going into the pool that all these industries need to pull from. I mean, it really missed me when you see these big, huge companies complaining about how there's no skilled labour out there, but they don't offer any opportunities to anyone to upskill, or they don't run an apprenticeship scheme. And I'm sort of thinking, well, it's a very selfish approach from a business to expect the labour that you need to make that business money, you just be able to pick it from it. And they blame everybody else. And I thought, well, you are part of the problem. Why aren't you communicating with colleges and things like this and educating and saying, look, we've got a real need for welders. What can we do as a business? I think one area of the country that has really got this nailed down and is really good at involving industry with what their training is up in and around the Northeast branch, TWI branch. They're very engaged with colleges, educational centres, training companies, and trying to meet the needs of that local demand. Very good. Whereas other areas, it's not so good.
I did see that. I think it was Gower College in South Wales has just achieved TWI certification, which
Yes,
is good news.
which is a good pull for getting welders qualified.
Yeah.
It's a qualification centre. I think Middlesbrough at one point had it. It's a good, the TWI accreditation scheme for welding certification is a good program for colleges to adopt. Providing the college know what they're delivering, MIG welding, MAG welding, TIG welding, the numbers, the test pieces. It's a step in the right direction. And frustratingly for me, it's, again, when I was out in the States, I met some very interesting people, the president of the AWS, the vice president of education at Lincoln and stuff like this, some real big hitters within education, and what the American Welding Society do with schools and colleges and supporting individuals is phenomenal. They have really, really set the standard. What we need to do as a UK is try and follow suit, try and learn what they're doing, because the US has recognised that in over 5 years, I think it's 5 years, someone's probably going to comment and pull us up on figures, but it was like 5 years of planned projects that have currently been green lighted in the United States. They have worked out that they're going to be 50 to 70,000 welders short to meet the demand of that infrastructure. Hinkley, same problem. Can't get enough welders. What's going to happen when Sizewell starts?
Yeah.
What happens when Rolls-Royce start their fingers crossed, their small modular reactor program? Where are they going to get these people from? So it's just something needs to be done about it. And that's where I sort of got involved with that welding joining matters. Hugh McPhillips that sits on the board is very passionate about welder training and recognises that problem of shortage within the industry and exposure of the skill within the industry, and just said, look, can you give us some stuff that might hit home a little bit, that people read and their ears perk up and think, wow, we need to start doing something about it. Bodies like the AWFTE have been dormant for years. The Association for Welder Training and Education, it's laid dormant. Why doesn't everybody know about it?
Well, I've never even heard of it.
Well, when I did my world skills and the skill world journey, AWFTE was a massive supporter of it, sponsor. Yeah. We did the finals at TWI in Cambridge. As time's gone on and money's got more difficult and funding and people aren't seeing the end result of the funding and the sponsorship that they're putting in, they just don't want to do it anymore. What do we get from it?
Well, skilled tradespeople in the industry, isn't it? That's what we need, obviously.
Highly skilled individuals and trades. You've got people that do skill welding, especially that go on and do world skills training. They're learning to be the best welders, not only in the country, but to compete against the best welders in the world. They're then able to feed that back into the companies that they work for, back into education centres. And we've seen this. We've seen Lakes College, guy's going to kill me if he listens to this. I can't remember his name. Connor. Sure, it's Connor. Did world skills, incredibly passionate about training, is now an educator in a college. Brian Fisher, Wakefield College, ex-skill weld competitor, now a tutor and an educator and a YouTuber about welding. It works. It just doesn't happen enough.
Yeah, it's promoting the industry. I think that's what we really need to do to get it out there, to get people talking about it and to get people wanting to join.
Yeah.
And just them having the knowledge to find the right places to train as well.
Yes. It's being able to offer opportunity. That opportunity, unfortunately, is just diminishing. It is diminishing. Throwing money at it isn't going to fix the problem. Funding is a big part of it, but we need commitment from employers and education centres to deliver. The brutal conversations of, right, what do we need? Are you going to be able to deliver the skill labour that we need? If the answer is no, what do we need to do to make sure that happens?
Well, you're obviously very passionate about this, and hopefully,
Can you tell?
yeah, but obviously it's great to hear as well because we need to promote the industry. We need to get things moving forward, and hopefully, within the next few years, that's something that can happen.
I just look at what it's done for me.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not rich. I'm not rolling around in big old fancy cars or any of that. But it's given me a very good lifestyle and
Comfortable lifestyle as well. Yeah.
continues to. Yes. From I'm 32 now. So I started this business. Well, I started with the business 7 years ago now, 2015, 2016, around that time. And then I look back at 2007, where I started with absolutely fuck all, not a single penny to my name. And with a very, very short period of time was just sort of had a career prospect, was earning good money, had a direction, had a career. And I think there are a lot of people out there that need that opportunity. Definitely, especially for males that get a hard time. We're not academic, or we tend to be less academic. We tend to be less good with English and writing and things like that. But put a welding torch in someone's hand, put a blade in a chef's hand, put a tool into these people's hands, and what they can do is phenomenal. I still remember Danny Broadbent. Danny Broadbent is a phenomenal welder. Can he write his own name? Just about. And he'll put his hands up. He's incredibly dyslexic, but what he does with a welding rod is unbelievable. I remember when we were doing the world skills training, he was 21 and he'd just done 100 grand.
Incredible, isn't it?
Mad. But someone took that opportunity. Alstom's seen that he was a very, very highly skilled individual, but because he didn't meet apprenticeship criteria, C's in English, maths, they supported him with that. Fortunately, that doesn't happen. Oh, you haven't got C's? Sorry. Doesn't matter how good you are as a skilled person. And what we do is accept all these people that have got the grades that haven't got the skill.
Obviously, education is important, but as you said, having a skill and being good at welding is also vitally important.
It's a career, isn't it? It's a skill that it's a career. It takes you, well, your story, you've been all over the world. I know loads of welders that have done their training here, high skilled, and they can walk into any country and get any job anywhere.
Listening to what you have to say, I think that we do have a lot of things left that we have to do in the industry to help sort of support it over the next few years. But if you keep doing what you're doing, keep helping upskill people, then I feel like I'll do
things like this, Christian, are key. If I could do stuff, I try and get involved with as much of this as possible, and I use the world skills tool. I use my story as a tool. I use all of these things as a tool to sort of say, look, go for it. It's a very, very good opportunity. It could potentially take you all over the world.
Yeah, this is the first time. Well, this is only the second episode I've recorded, so I'm still trying to get there a little bit. Still don't really know what I'm doing, but if I can do just a little bit to help promote the industry, then that's great for me. Whether people look and listen and think, "What is he doing?" I don't really care if it helps to get a few people in the industry, or
100%.
if it helps to put our side across as a welder, pipe fitter, rigger, whatever trade. I'd like to speak to as many people as I possibly can, just to help promote the industry.
Definitely. Well, if you ever need some space filling with someone that's very good at chatting shit, just pick up the phone.
Oh, you can definitely chat shit. Yeah, we got that. But no,
come on. I mean,
thank you very much for your time, Jake.
We're going to both have our kai at the end of this, but yeah, it's been great speaking to you, Christian. Many thanks for inviting me on and giving me the opportunity to share my story and my enthusiasm, and just put it out there that if there's anyone that's listening to this and they're sort of going, yeah, that's something that I want to do, but I want a bit more information, they feel free to sort of drop me a message, find me on LinkedIn, on Instagram. I'm pretty friendly. All right. So, I don't
Yeah.
bite. You can pick up the
Mm.
phone, and I'm always happy to help wherever I can.
Yeah, well, I'll check your socials in the comments as well. So if anybody does want to get in touch with you, they can just find you
Definitely.
straight there. But thank you very much for everything.
Brilliant. Thank you,
Cheers,
Christian.
Jake. Cheers, mate.